I lived in the Coq d'Or quarter for about a year and a half. One day in summer, I found that I'd just 450 francs left, and beyond this, nothing but 36 francs a week, which I earned by giving English lessons. Hitherto, I'd not thought about the future, but I now realized that I must do something at once. I decided to start looking for a job, and, very luckily as it turned out, I took the precaution of paying 200 francs for a month's rent in advance. With the other 250 francs, besides the English lessons, I could live a month, and in a month I should probably find work. One day there turned up at the hotel a young Italian who called himself a compositor. Madame did not like the look of him and made him pay a week's rent in advance. During this time, he managed to prepare some duplicate keys, and on the last night he robbed a dozen rooms, including mine. Luckily, he did not find the money that was in my pockets. I was left with just 47 francs, that is, 7 shillings and 10 pence. This put an end to my plans of looking for work. I'd now got to live at the rate of about 6 francs a day, and from the start it was too difficult to leave much thought for anything else. It was now that my experiences of poverty began. For 6 francs a day, if not actual poverty, is on the fringe of it. 6 francs is a shilling, and you can live on a shilling a day in Paris if you know how, but it is a complicated business. It is altogether curious, your first contact with poverty. You have thought so much about poverty. It is the thing you have feared all your life, and it is also utterly and prosaically different. You thought it would be quite simple. It is extraordinarily complicated. You thought it would be terrible. It is merely squalid and boring. You discover, for instance, the secrecy attached to poverty. At a sudden stroke, you have been reduced to an income of 6 francs a day, but of course you dare not admit it. You've got to pretend that you're living quite as usual. Every day at mealtimes you go out, ostensibly to a restaurant, and loaf an hour, watching the pigeons. Afterwards, you smuggle your food home in your pockets. Your food is bread and margarine. Sometimes, to keep up appearances, you have to spend 60 centimes on a drink and go correspondingly short of food. Your linen gets filthy, and you run out of soap and razor blades. You discover the extreme precariousness of your 6 francs. Mean disasters happen and rob you of food. You've spent your last 80 centimes on half a litre of milk, and you're boiling it over the spirit lamp. While it boils, a bug runs down your forearm. You give the bug a flick with your nail, and it falls straight into the milk. There is nothing for it but to throw the milk away and go foodless. You go to the greengrocer's to spend a franc on a kilogram of potatoes. But one of the pieces that make up the franc is a Belgian piece, and the shopman refuses it. You slink out of the shop and can never go there again. One could multiply these disasters by the 100. They are part of the process of being hard up. You discover what it is like to be hungry. With bread and margarine in your belly, you go out and look into the shop windows. Everywhere there is food insulting you in huge, wasteful piles, whole dead pigs, baskets of hot loaves, great yellow blocks of butter, strings of sausages, vast Gruyere cheeses. You discover the boredom which is inseparable from poverty, the times when you have nothing to do, and being underfed can interest yourself in nothing. For half a day at a time you lie on your bed. This, one could describe it further, but it is all in the same style, is life on 6 francs a day. Thousands of people in Paris live it. Struggling artists and students, prostitutes when their luck is out of work people of all kinds. I continued in this style for about 3 weeks. The 47 francs were soon gone, and I had to do what I could on 36 francs a week from the English lessons. Being inexperienced, I handled the money badly, and sometimes I was a day without food. When this happened, I used to sell a few of my clothes, smuggling them out of the hotel in small packets, and taking them to a second-hand shop in the Rue de la Montagne Sainte-Geneviève. These 3 weeks were squalid and uncomfortable, and evidently there was worse coming, for my rent would be due before long. Nevertheless, things were not a quarter as bad as I had expected. For, when you are approaching poverty, you make one discovery which outweighs some of the others. You discover the fact that poverty annihilates the future. Within certain limits, it is actually true that the less money you have, the less you worry. When you have 100 francs in the world, you're liable to the most craven panics. When you have only 3 francs, you are quite indifferent, for 3 francs will feed you till tomorrow, and you can't think further than that. You're bored, but you're not afraid. And there's another feeling that is a great consolation in poverty. It is a feeling of relief, almost of pleasure, at knowing yourself at last genuinely down and out. You have talked so often of going to the dogs, and, well, here are the dogs, and you can stand it. It takes off a lot of anxiety.